Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dev and Wine. Today actually we'll be covering a little more personal story of how I personally became a software engineer, and by sharing this story I hope maybe it will be useful for you, helpful for you, or just maybe you are stuck right now or you need some encouragement or example somehow helpful for you, because I really want to help other people who are actually struggling with this and understand that to become a software engineer, in most cases it's not direct shortest path. It's something like unclear paths with many deviations and many pivoting until you get to the final destinations. And for some people, they never reach the final destination because they give up too early. I don't want that for you. I want you to succeed. So if you're excited to hear more, stay with me and we will roll. So my interest to the tech, to the IT, and to the computer started, of course, with my childhood, when my first computer was bought. It basically was playing with HTML 3.2 version at the time, and I was really happy to play with the basics of the HTML and building websites. Most of the websites were static at the time, and it was really cool. It was really fascinating. For me, that time it was completely magic. And the next level at that time was, once I grew up a little bit, to learn PHP. That was the coolest programming language at the time. And actually I never made it. I think I bought one book, but it was really hard to read and I understand. So unfortunately I never made it to be a PHP developer. In my early career, I was doing sort of like IT technician generalist roles, and that was primarily my career most of the time, until I think I pivoted a little bit for account manager role in sales for IT company. I tried myself there. I really liked that career as well. Yeah, it was not the end of my pivoting in career. So the next big pivot was actually when we moved to the new country, and for everyone who's moving out, they have to start from the scratch. I was giving a choice for myself, 3 different paths. One would be a career in IT infrastructure and support, IT sales, or lucrative software engineering. So that was sort of like, I felt some emotions back to what I did when I was in a school age, but I felt some of the connection and this not fulfilled desire to be a developer, software engineer. And I felt like this is a kind of good time. And of course, this thing I was on the weight, but also my choice was complementing with the things that software engineering career is well paid in terms of the salary, good in benefits. So I saw that on the market, and I think my choice for me was very clear. I had to start from scratch anyway. Why not to start with something which is more demanding on the market? Yeah, I still have to learn, but that was only the one downside. I think at the time I was discovering which path to choose: backend, front-end, ML engineering for the AI. So of course I started with Python because that's the only language for the ML engineering at the time. I was really excited. I went through the Coursera course for the Python. I bought 3 books about the Python from Amazon. Never completed them till the end. They're still in my shelf right now. Sounds familiar, right? I found the part-time course from one of the local bootcamp place, but it was part-time course. And by starting this course, meeting the people, trying things out, remembering HTML, CSS, learning JavaScript, and a little bit trying out with React.js. From that moment, front-end development isn't my thing. I did some web development before, even with the CMS systems, with some HTML. I feel it's something where I can be more or less comfortable and feel good about it. So I started to look for the things to complement my Python course, because part-time course wasn't enough. I used so many different resources for learning. I was jumping between part-time projects, unpaid one for some of the companies. So my work path and strategy to become a software developer was so chaotic, hectic. It was like many directions at the same time, and not a straight path to where I actually should be doing. I did a lot of mistakes along the way. When I picked up the courses, I started them. Then of course I switched to the job. I had my kids. I had some life happening. One of the reasons why I'm making this channel, to share my experience, so you will learn from my mistakes. I know it's, when you're beginning, it's a lot of unknowns around you, and it's really hard to tell what will be the best choice, what will be the best programming language you choose. That's why I'm sharing the story and overall experience from my channel. If you have questions, we have Facebook group. It's attached to the channel and on my website as well, devandwine.com. We also have Discord channel. Whatever you feel comfortable, ask me there if I will be late to response. Within the 1 day, I will anyway respond to your question. I try to be as much as useful as I can. I can share the knowledge about the courses you want to pick depending on your needs, the platform, whatever where I feel comfortable. And with my experience about like 5 years so far in front-end engineering, I will try to be helpful as much as I can. Try to leverage that. I can be your mentor for free and you can ask me any questions. Moving on, I was learning with the Code Academy and trying to complete these part-time courses with all these chaotic movements. I landed my first contract, which is sort of was related to the web development. At that time, I had my IT support contract ended. So technically I was almost like without a job. I was anyway happy. I landed this contract that was for hospital in the marketing department. So contract was initially for 1 month. They extended to the 2 months. It was for the managing their websites. Yeah, I passed interview pretty quickly and I was really excited. So that was my first touch to the web development professionally. And at that time, I think we were expecting our first baby. And my wife was expecting to start mat leave, and I was here with my 1 month contract. So that was a lot of unknowns and scariness up front. But anyway, I think the company even wanted to extend it a little more, but I got another job, which is full-time with educational company. I was developer position and I was really excited because I finally landed a job. I nailed the interview. They called me. I was really excited to start it. But little did I know that actually it wasn't exactly full-time developer job. It was like a semi-developer job. I had to do a lot of like a media stuff, support websites, support educational process of production of the books and educational materials. A little bit of development, but it wasn't a software development company in the classic way. So I was a little discouraged. By the way, this happened to me all the way until I get my first job. I wanted so many times to quit. I was talking to my wife. I think, what about if I just return to the way I do, the way I know how to work, how to earn my dollar, where I'm expert, because I'm not like young. And maybe a few times I asked my wife just like a little, but I doubted myself inside so many times. It was like a constant fight between my mind and my desire to become a software developer and my desire to just go to the safety to what I know. Maybe I can succeed the career there, and I knew I could succeed the career, but I didn't want to pivot from that path I picked up. So I spent there about like a year or so at that company, and I was of course learning, practicing, doing all this crazy things. I was doing many things in many directions at the same time, which was not good, by the way. Instead, it's always good to do a focus at one thing to get things done faster and with a higher quality. So I remember it was Christmas week break. So we had this like a Christmas break at the company where I was working, and I think I had like some interview during that Christmas break. I was like, oh, okay. They called me and say like, hey, did you apply at LinkedIn? I said like, oh yeah, probably yes. Like I said like, yeah, I knew, of course. I didn't remember at which company where I applied to this company, because you will never remember if you apply so many positions at the same time. It's so ridiculous when they ask, oh, you remember our company, you remember our requirements? Of course not. I have to go to my Gmail account, look to all the positions I applied, go back to their website, look through the responsibility. That's the company I actually applied. Okay, yeah, of course I remember you. I love your company because I applied to your position. So back to this interview, they called me and they were like, oh, like we need to fill out. I was like, yeah, I had these calls many times. I was not paying attention. Like, yeah, sure. It was this screening interview, then was tech round with the 2 engineers, so like a little junior, a little senior, a few questions. I think like I kind of like nailed a couple questions, and a senior engineer was like trying to help me out. Like, he saw something in me and he was like, oh, like, yeah, you actually can do that this way, that way. He sort of helped me out, and I didn't know if I passed this interview at all, but because it wasn't clear. I think a lot of things happened at this time. I had a lot of interviews passed before, so I had some knowledge. I did some coding challenges, at some level, and I had some small experience with the small projects I had before, so I talked about this project. I think all this stuff aligned with some level of the knowledge, some level of the experience, some level of the current experience in my resume, even though it's a semi-developer but still developer, and my desire, my persistence, because I was applying to so many positions. When you are prepared at some level, and when the luck comes in, and by luck I mean this company wanted to close this position as soon as possible, and probably they didn't have so many developers available at this timeline of the Christmas break, or for some reason maybe the market was not good for them. And when everything is aligned, I actually got an offer. I had actually, after this tech interview, I had another one which called like a culture fit, and I knew like, okay, usually when they call interview culture fit, it's a behavioral questions interview, and I started to brush my skills on how do I answer questions, because I sort of knew like I'm getting, if you are invited to the third interview and it's culture fit, you are probably will be asked for the behavioral questions interview, but you probably nailed all these previous steps and you're like a one half small step away from the job offer. And I was like very nervous, prepared myself as much as I can for the behavioral questions interview. I brushed everything I knew. I was very nervous, and the guy, he was a senior developer at this interview before. He said, hey, I just booked it for the sake of the formality. I called it culture fit, but it will not be a culture fit. I was expecting like a VP level at this interview. Usually like it's a top management joining this interview. He said, hey, I'm just here to discuss your salary requirements, salary expectations. Yeah, so I was so relieved. I actually got job offer, and it was Christmas break, and when I got the offer, I basically it was me, my wife, our cat nearby, and our daughter. We were like all three of us with a cat, probably, I don't know, cat was sleeping, but we were like jumping and celebrating. We were like so happy because at this point I finally finished my path, which I started, I don't know, like a 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. So it took me some time to get to this full-time actual software engineering job at a software engineering company. It was a small startup, but it was agile Scrum methodology with the sprints, with front-end, full-stack, back-end developers, designers, testers. It was completely software company, small, but it's exactly what I wanted. I was really happy to finally nailing that role. Yeah, I was excited. It wasn't a React developer job. They had some in-house built framework on vanilla JavaScript. I didn't care. I liked it anyway. It was a nice experience, by the way, to manage vanilla JavaScript experience for my future works. And later on, we actually moved to the React.js. I was always having an income, and I was sort of like building my resume all the way through, even though it took me longer overall, without a clear path, without the mentorship. But once you're there, your experience grows so much, so insanely high, because you're actually practicing, you typing the code every day, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. So I hope this story was useful for you. I hope it somehow resonated and you can learn from it, or you can be encouraged. I'm really happy to what I'm doing right now. I'm working remotely. I'm at a senior role. I have 5 years experience behind my back. I can provide for my family. I can grow technically more. I can do my side projects on my free time. If you feel this was a great story, somehow resonated, helpful, living a life for me, this is a very personal story. Let me in the comments, maybe your story, or what you're feeling right now, what you are coming through right now, what is your struggle. And consider subscribing to the channel, because mostly I have learning programming content for the beginners, mentorship, coaching style, and practical tips on interviews and coding challenges, on salaries. So thank you so much. Stay tuned. Bye.